2 minutes, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Good. All right. Go for it. Okay,
You're live.
great. Thank you. So this is Friday, February 6th, 2026, and it is Senate institutions. Yeah, that's perfect. Great. And then we have two items or two individuals here. One item. We'll be looking at section 9 of the capital bill and looking at dam safety programs and the budget adjustment request. So we'll go around and introduce ourselves because I don't know if you know. Wendy Harrison, I represent the Wyndham District.
Rob Plunkett, Bennington District.
Joe Major.
Joe Major, I'm sorry, Wyndham District.
Joe Major. Russ Ingles, Essex District.
John Benson, Orange District.
Okay, and then you can introduce yourself for the record and have your presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Emily Bird. I'm the Water Investment Division Director, and I'm joined here by my colleague Ben Green, who is our Dam Safety Program Manager. Thank you for having us in this afternoon. We're here to present on requests under Section 9 of the Capital Budget Adjustment and to provide some updates on our capital funding and projects. And if there's time, we can walk you through some significant project work at the Waterbury Dam.
Perfect. Thank you.
Over to you, Ben.
Thank you very much. For the record, I'm Ben Green, Section Chief of the Dam Safety Program. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Would be possible to get that on that, please.
Let's see your request.
Do you need to do it again?
Yeah, you send another request.
I'm sorry.
Ken, if you make Ben a co-host, then I have permission. The record's got more.
And thank you, Scott. And I should have let you introduce.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, great. As Emily said, thank you very much for having us in today to discuss status of some items going on in the dam safety program. This cover slide is of Waterbury Dam, which if there's time at the end, we can go through update on some project work that's going on there with the Army Corps of Engineers. Just to do a brief overview of our program, for those not familiar, the Dam Safety Program is located in the Water Investment Division within DEC. Our mission statement is noted here. It's a little bit different than many others in DEC, and our primary focus is public safety relative to dams. We have two primary responsibilities, and that is number one is dam regulation, and number two is dam ownership. And those two things take up about 50% of our time each. Current staffing is we're 7 people currently. We're trying to recruit 2 more to go to 9, which is pretty exciting. When I started in 2017, there was 2 of us. So we're heading in the right direction there, and very exciting. It's really increasing a lot of our capabilities. On the regulatory side, we operate under state statute 10 VSA chapter 43 dams, where we regulate non-federal, non-power dams. And there's about a total of about 1,000 of those in the state, and we really focus on a subset of about 400 plus of those. On the ownership side, we directly own 14 state-owned dams, including the 3 Winooski River flood control dams, Waterbury, Wrightsville, and East Barry. And we do a wide variety of ownership activities at those, including regular operations, maintenance, flood operations, monitoring. We do capital projects through the entire portion of the work. Basically, all things an owner would do for a facility, we do for those dams.
Great, thank you. Are you good with questions as we go along?
Sure.
Anybody have any questions?
The next kind of pivot to talk about the capital appropriations. We're actually gonna go back and talk a little bit about fiscal year 23. We're gonna talk about fiscal year 26 and 27, and then also talk about our capital budget adjustment for $150,000 in the upcoming slides. So this table here is the same table, basically the same table we've been presenting now for a couple of years. We used the same table last session, and the text highlighted in green are updates on the individual projects and how we're using fiscal year 23, 26, and 27 monies to accomplish the projects. On an overall scale, we're doing fairly well. With few exceptions, all of these projects are either in action right now or are very nearly so in action. And we're moving through with the plans for every one of these dollars. Happy to go down by line if you'd like to get up on each of the projects. We did that for the house. I don't know if that's the level of detail you're interested in or not.
Well, it's hard to see them, and
Okay.
I don't know, maybe we have this somewhere, Scott, or Ken, I don't know. But it'd be good to have this available on our website.
Sure.
Could, just knowing our districts, can you just point out a couple that are,
Sure. I kind of break, I guess I can do them like kind of pods, so I go down through. Wrightsville Dam, which is just up the street here, so that one's kind of near and dear to everybody that sits in this building.
that's a big one.
We are undergoing a geotechnical exploration and maternal erosion study. That was a piece of work that kind of came out of a risk assessment that we did on 18 state-owned dams back in 2024. That work's moving forward. We're contracted with GEI Consultants. We're doing the final planning phases for that, for the fieldwork to occur this summer. The next 6 lines are all state-owned dams that are going through a comprehensive assessment step. And they are all contracted in progress right now, with the bulk of the fieldwork going to happen this season, and then the recommendations in the final report are going to be delivered at the end of this year.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So are all of these dams that are gonna stay? Because I know there's a fair amount of dams that should be removed.
These are dams that
are-
are staying.
Okay.
Yeah. These are all we're all targeting rehabilitation projects with with this work.
Thank you.
About midway down, we have Noise Pond Dam, final design, permitting, and construction phase engineering services. That design is underway. We recently just received 60% design drawings that we're reviewing internally right now. We've had some internal, public meetings to review the progress and take public input, and moving forward with that project. And in a future year, we'll be looking for an appropriation for construction of that, which at the moment, the estimate is 1.8 million for construction, although we'll have a better estimate as that design is completed. I guess just back, the next one online is Gale Meadows Dam and Dike. That's located in Londonderry, Vermont. That's a Fish and Wildlife owned dam. Took some pretty good damage to the auxiliary spillway following the 2023 floods. We assisted Fish and Wildlife to design and install a temporary repair to that spillway. And this line item is for the comprehensive assessment to basically assess the whole dam and figure out what we need to get that dam up to snuff. That work is largely complete. We've been billed for, there's a dam and a dike on that reservoir. They billed us for the dike portion, and then it's going to hopefully be settled out in the next few months. That will all be spent. The next line is also a project at the Wrightsville Dam just up the road here. This is a project, it's called the Flood Operations Flexibility Study. This is a project we've been trying to engage with the Army Corps of Engineers since the 2023 floods. As you may recall, in 2023 was that severe flood event. Whitefield Reservoir filled flood control band within 11 inches of our auxiliary spillway. It was a tense time for many of us. And thankfully, floodwaters receded and we didn't have that extra discharge of our auxiliary spillway. But it raised some questions. It took some extended period of time for that water to evacuate out. And it raised some questions if there's an opportunity to improve some operational flexibility at the dam that we don't currently have to make that, well, the dam didn't perform well, make it even perform better under future floods. So this is a public assistance to the state's project that we're doing with the Army Corps of Engineers, which is a 50% cost share. Project's roughly $700,000. Our share is $350,000. The agreement is in-house right now. It has to be signed by the 13th of this month. So it's going to be starting very, very soon, and they're going to be requesting, I believe, the $350,000 of our part upfront in the first 15 days of the contract. So very shortly that will be zeroed out, and that project will be running. So that's exciting.
That's great. So that is that the construction of the project, not design?
That's like feasibility, that study and initial design.
Okay, so it's not gonna be fixed yet.
It's not gonna fix the issue, it's gonna study the issue. It's a little bit of a complex issue because the idea that we could move water pre-event and sort of at portions during the event is largely contingent on the capacity of the north branch between the dam and here. So it's gonna be a careful survey of that Saxon River and some very detailed modeling done to see where we have capacity and where we don't, and what we could possibly do to make, improvements on the outflows. So it's a study project to look at that and then come up with alternatives if in fact it does prove out to be something that we could do and make sense to do. How would we do it?
So there's a whole corridor study, right? Isn't there? So isn't that a corridor study there?
Honorable, I think.
Well, it's, you may be familiar with river corridor planning.
Maybe that's what
a
I'm-
separate
yeah.
initiative that we work through with our rivers program to identify priority restoration projects. But I think what Ben is getting at is this is a really comprehensive study looking at upstream and downstream of the dam and opportunities to maximize operations for flood control if in the event we face a similar or worse storm. that
Well,
we
we likely will.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So
I think we should say when.
that's a very good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Optimism.
No. Hey, we're the government.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A very positive project, and we'll hopefully learn a lot about what makes sense and what we can do there. The next project on the list is called the DEC Dams Instrumentation Installation Project. This is for installation of some instrumentation and monitoring equipment at our dams. The design portion of this project is funded by general fund monies and is nearing completion and should be completed in March. So we're hoping to bid that work out and use that money to hopefully get installations in the ground as soon as this year with that money. That one marked green because that was originally $400,000. And we have another project we'll talk about in a minute that had some overruns at Waterbury Dam that we sort of used a little bit of the money from that, brought that one down from 400 to 350 to keep the other project moving. And that's part of our adjustment ask is to restore that money and get enough to finish up the other water projects. So that's significant for that reason. Silver Lake Dam is in Barnard. That's next to the state park. That's a project that's hopefully moving to design here very soon. The RFP will hopefully be launched as soon as next week. I'm discussing that with the business office. The next two lines, Kent Pond Dam, which is located at Killington, and Lowell Lake Dam, which is located in Londonderry, are planned for fiscal year $27, $250,000 each. At this time, that will be available in July. We may seek to do something a little bit different with those funds, and if we do, we'll certainly let the committee know. Those projects are under comprehensive assessment right now, so they won't be ready for design in July. So the time is not quite right.
I apologize, and you may have gone over this in where it says hazard class.
Yes.
What is that designation?
So dams in the state of Vermont and nationally are given one of three hazard potential classifications: high, significant, or low. A high hazard dam is one that if the dam were to fail, it would result in probable loss of life. So Wrightsville is a great example. A significant hazard dam is one as if the dam were to fail, loss of life is not considered probable, but significant property damage, environmental damage, or lifeline loss is expected. And then a low hazard dam is one that if the dam were to fail, there would be little impact downstream, or really wouldn't have a great impact downstream. So I would say high hazard dams are sort of the ones that we put the most priority on, and the significant lesser, and then lows are behind that.
Do we assign for the high priority? Do we assign we want to get this done by X? Is there a time period that you?
Yes, we did a risk assessment of the 18 high and significant hazard dams completed in 2024, and that helped us to rank and stack them by highest, but within the categories of hazard class, look even deeper into them, organize them by highest risk to lowest risk. They all have a degree of high risk. So using the word low is not really the right word to use there, but highest to least high risk. And so they're usually using that as our guideline for the order of priority of the projects. With few exceptions, we had a few that were already sort of in progress while that study was being done. And so those are still in the mix a little bit. But yes, then I have a slide later on that kind of explains our methodology for projects as we go from initial risk assessment all the way through complete construction.
Thank you. I appreciate that helps.
Yeah, no problem at all. And then the last two lines on here, the first one is the requested budget adjustment, and I have a slide that gives a long explanation as to what we're asking for and why. But by and large, we have a project going on at Waterbury right now. We're evaluating the tunnel and the penstock systems. Basically, it's the way that water is most often conveyed from the reservoir through the dam and then to the Little River downstream. And we've been evaluating those, and that project has had some overruns. And so we're requesting $150,000 to be able to complete that project, which is ongoing, near to completion in the beginning, but ongoing, and also to restore some of the money that was taken from the instrumentation project, to restore that, to be able to full funding for that project.
Okay.
The final line on here relates to DEC staffing, where we use within the Water Investment Division, there's a group called the Agency Facilities Engineers. They're sort of like an internal consultant. They're all state employees. They all sit desks near ours, and they have professional engineering capabilities, survey capabilities. And to a degree, we use their assistance on several of our projects to help keep them moving. They're usually very accessible, very cost effective. They do have limitations. They're not specialized dam safety engineers, so we don't use them on many projects. But in past years, when we've used them, they've always been part of our projects, and you've seen that kind of in the total cost. This year, that cost was broken up kind of for transparency to show the amount of money that was spent on them, and perhaps someone can provide a
sure.
very on that.
So similar to Forest Parks and Rec and Fish and Wildlife, the agency facilities team within our division provides engineering services directly to capital eligible projects. And so as the team is working on dam safety program projects, we're only charging their time when they're working directly on the engineering and survey services for capital eligible projects. Just wanted to speak to that, because I know there's been some concern over the years about staff time being charged to capital funding. So it's really just direct engineering on projects that would otherwise have to be outsourced to a consultant engineer.
That makes sense. Thank you. And then just a comment about staffing in general, because this is my 4th year on this committee, and it wasn't that long ago when you had 2 people. And so it's really important that you're fully staffed, and that now you'll have 9. So did you have 9 and then you went down, or?
So since I've been here, I started in 2017, we started with 2. I think in 2021, we got to 4. And then as recently as a few months ago, we had 8. And then unfortunately we lost that. So now we're down to 7. We've had the 2 positions. We've had an engineering position open for almost a year now. I had a very hard time filling that. We've had 2 or 3 candidates. We've gotten very close to hiring, and this hasn't worked out. And then the position that we had, and then we unfortunately, person moved on to a dream job of theirs, and we're going to be putting out again soon. There's a project management, budget manager position to help us with we do a lot of contracting, so that help us on the contracting side and our business side.
Okay. And so hopefully you'll get to the steady state at some point.
Hopefully we'll have, hopefully not too long, we'll have those 2 positions filled, and we'll get a full team.
Good, good. Because your work is really important.
Thank you. Yes. So that's kind of the overall update.
But you said you had a more detailed slide about the Waterbury Dam.
Yep, I do.
Okay.
Yep, I'll move to that.
Great.
This is tailored for presentation only. The house was helpful because this was the slide we presented this last year. We want to go back and forth a little bit, but we didn't need it for this group, so I'll skip over that one. So this is the slide about the requested budget adjustment of $150,000 for the Waterbury Dam Tunnel and Penstock project. The objective of the project was at its root was simply to inspect, evaluate, and do testing and analysis of the condition of the tunnel, which is a 14-foot wide, 11-foot tall, arch-shaped concrete tunnel, and then it feeds into 3 steel penstocks, which are 54-inch diameter down to 48-inch diameter. It basically conveys water from the reservoir through the dam to downstream. So evaluate the condition of those pipes and tunnels. We had done a very rudimentary assessment back in 2018. We had really not a lot of records before that. So we felt it very important, specifically with the upcoming spillway project that we're going to be doing with the Army Corps of Engineers. This will be solely the way that water passes through the dam for a 2-year time period. So we want to make sure they're up to it. So the budget for this project was $1.8 million, which included engineering and contractors, and we're requesting $150,000 amendment to that, or adjustment to that, to both level up back with the instrumentation project and complete this project. Some of the cost overruns and challenges that we ran into, believe it or not, the fall drought challenged this project and push the schedule into the winter to minimize impacts to recreation and environment. We had to schedule this project in October and November. That was the ideal time to be doing the project. And as part of the project, we have to actually raise the water level above normal levels, about 2.5 feet, and spill water at our spillway, so we can shut our tunnel off and be inside our tunnel, not conveying water through it.
Oh, interesting.
And the drought made that with terrible timing because we couldn't get the reservoir to rise. While every other reservoir in the state was slowly going down, water was actually slowly going up, but too slow to hit our time schedule. So we ended up getting a late start. We decided to push ahead and go for it. And unfortunately, we had a very cold and snowy December. As part of cleaning the penstocks, water was used as a cleaning medium. That clean water turned into wastewater and was stored in these frac tanks you can see in the photographs, which was really not ideal work to be doing in a freezing December. So we had costs associated with snow and ice removal, heating blankets, water line, dealing with frozen water lines, frozen tanks, slowed production as a result. In fact, the tanks, which were supposed to be completed, were removed after completion of cleaning, which was done in late December, are still on site today because they're just basically frozen bricks, and we're going to have to wait till spring to remove them off site.
Wow. So those are the white things on
The
the
white
right?
trailers are frac tanks where the water, cleaning water had to be decanted through those. The wastewater was taken to municipal wastewater treatment plants, and the solids that were decanted out were taken to a landfill.
If we wanted to go see that, can the public drive there now?
Yes, yes. I mean, it's winter conditions, but yes.
Yeah. It's a really interesting dam though to drive across.
Yeah, we can offer as well as we offered the House Committee. If we do give tours of the facility, if you're ever interested, this time of year is not the best time because it's a little more difficult getting around. But when the snow's gone, I'll be happy to give a tour of this facility in its whole.
It's pretty fascinating piece of infrastructure. So
Yeah.
definitely
And
encouraged.
It's sizable. Additional reasons for cost overruns was additional inspection was required. We had some unexpected conditions that were discovered in the penstocks. This extended the duration of the project. Every day that we have to enter the penstocks, those are confined space entries that have a little extra cost associated with the worker safety parameters. In addition, we learned that the way the pipes were welded was not what was expected. We needed additional welding tests to really get a full sense of the condition of the penstocks. So there was additional preparation and testing that needed to be done. The challenge here is that typically these are watered up, meaning they are pressurized penstocks, and so we have like finite time to get this data. We can't just like do it next spring. Everything's dewatered. This is our time, so we sort of have to get it while we can. So that's why we had to do this extra work. And then also as part of this project, we have several gates and valves associated with the tunnel that have actuators, which are basically just mechanical devices that operate the gates, and those were in need of restoration. They had not been really heavily maintained since the original installation in 1985. They were removed and shipped away to be torn down and basically rebuilt. And unfortunately, both of them needed more work than what we were initially hoping.
Unfortunately.
So they're coming back. They're in A1 condition, but the cost was a bit higher than our initial quotes that we.
So that's part of the 150.
That's part of it. Yep. So that's the
Any
reason for
questions?
those extra dollars.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks.
This next slide is designed to kind of show how our project maturation process is and kind of what we're really striving to use as our work plan for these projects. As we start out with that portfolio risk assessment, which is what I was talking about, completed in 2024, we did a risk assessment of 18 high significant hazard dams that allows us to quote unquote rack and stack them from highest risk to least risk amongst those 18 for prioritization purposes for limited funds. The next step is to move to comprehensive assessment. Comprehensive assessment is a detailed engineering study that includes things like hydrology and hydraulic analysis of the dams, geotechnical and structural analyses of the dams, and then development of alternatives analysis needed to address deficiencies or bring the dams up to standard and lower the risk, and cost estimates. So it kind of sets us on a path of really what are the issues and what do we need to do to fix these things and what are the costs. From comprehensive assessment, we move to we select an alternative that makes the most sense based on a variety of parameters. We go to final design and permitting. We have one project in process at Noise Pond Dam and two that are very shortly going to be in final design. And then for final design, we go to rehabilitation construction. And our goal is to have one or two projects, each one of these phases at any time. At the moment, since it's kind of like a newer program, the way that we're doing it, we're kind of a little heavier in the comprehensive assessments than we are at the later stages. And we're sort of just kind of show we're going to need additional financial support to be able to move rehabilitation construction projects through the pipeline at the pace of one a year or so.
How far ahead do you plan for financing?
This is almost like a 10-year plan, because if you
Yeah.
look at the rate of doing one dam per year, we have like two or three, three of them in the design phase, and 6 or 7 in the comprehensive assessment stage. So, once we have the comprehensive assessment, we have a pretty decent sense for what the cost is going to be, and then we can sort of plan for final design and rehabilitation construction. So, that's sort of the pace of it.
Okay, so there is a 10-year plan, maybe.
Yeah, and basically, this is a 10-year plan, based on that. I mean, just capacity wise and reality wise, we can't really move through multiple construction projects by 1 year, or maybe 2, maybe, but that would be about once. So at that pace, that's like a reasonable pace to kind of keep, I think, it moving. Allow us to move through the inventory in an appropriate pace, and yeah, with the level of funding is probably realistic. So.
Great. Any questions? Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Keep going.
This next slide just discusses some of the challenges that we face in working through these projects and some of our plans for continuous improvement. 2 of our large challenges that we do have is the time and resources that we spend in setting up all the multiple contracts that we have, moving through the RFP to selection to contract negotiations, execution step, as well as working through legal issues, which is pretty common on the engineering contracts as well as construction contracts. Working on dams is risky work by and large. One of the main tools that we're looking at, and hopefully this RFP is going to be out as soon as next week, is engineering specific retainer contract, where rather than having to RFP and do solicitations for each individual project, we're going to get a retainer contract set up with pre-qualified engineers that will allow us to much more quickly select engineers and move to engineering work. And so hopefully that's
AOT does.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I
hopefully,
guess maybe you didn't. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, hopefully it will. It's gonna be in a 4-year contract, so it'll probably be a bit of a challenge to get them set up initially, but once we have them set up, we'll be able to move much more quickly. It'll be a simple PO process and a simplified selection process. Should save a lot of time, because all the back-end contractual things that really do take a lot of time will be figured out just once.
And there's probably not a lot of contractors who do this.
It is a limited number
Yeah.
of engineers and contractors.
So you'll have multiple retainers.
We'll have one retainer contract with multiple consultants on.
Yeah, that's what I
So we'll
mean.
have, yeah,
Okay,
we'll cover,
so you can choose who you want for a particular, so there's still some element of
Right.
competition.
yeah, it depends, we have some flexibility to choose, as well as to solicit several different ones if we feel several of them would be good choices to see who would be most advantageous by price or other benefits.
That's great. And so you are going to do that. You don't need anyone's okay, or you've gotten the okay.
We've gotten the okays, and that's very soon moving to bidding, and hopefully by springtime, this will be a reality. And as we move to future projects, the amount of time that we spend on sort of that repetitive process will be brought down to a much lower amount of staff resources.
Great.
Other one we've already tried to mention is staffing. As we build our team to 9, that's really allowed us to look at things that we weren't able to look at before, and to take on projects we weren't able to take on. So that's a huge advantage as well for us. That's sort of the conclusion of the update on overall capital spending type topics. This next slide moves into Waterbury Dam updates, if that is something that you want to tackle and move
Yeah,
on to.
because there was something that went wrong. Or I mean, a while ago, like a couple of years ago, there was a complication with this dam.
Waterbury.
Yeah.
There's been several.
No, okay. Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I mean, y'all are good with it? Yes,
I'm always interested.
Good.
So.
good.
Yeah, so this presentation will go over some basic background on Waterbury Dam, talk about the spillway project that we're working on with the Corps of Engineers, go into a little bit more detail actually into the tunnel and penstock project that we're doing, go into a challenge that we had to overcome this fall with the dam, which I thought maybe that's what you were referring to when you said there's a problem at the dam. But there's been some challenge with this dam over time. It is the largest dam that we own. It's the 3rd largest dam in the state. Just kind of go down through the slide here. The dam has a drainage area of 109 square miles. It's located right over here in Waterbury. The northern end of the drainage basin is the peak of Mount Mansfield. To the west, we're bounded by the Greens. To the east, we're bounded by the Worcester Range. It's a high hazard potential dam, meaning loss of life and failure would result in probable loss of life. The population at risk or number of people that are within that simulated inundation boundary should the dam fail is roughly 5,000 people. When you do a life loss calculation on that, we come up between 800 and 900 people roughly. So it's up there for by Vermont standards. In terms of number of structures that could be inundated by a dam failure, we're looking at 1,400, and degree of damages, we're looking at the $300 to $800 million range. So should be a catastrophe if we were to lose this dam. The dam has three primary purposes. Number one is flood protection. That's what its original construction purpose was. And it's been calculated that the dam provides roughly 4 million in flood damage prevented annually. Number two use is hydropower, supports a 5 megawatt power plant owned by Green Mountain Power that's located at the base of the dam. And then recreationally, this dam is very significant. Holds back Waterbury Reservoir, which supports 2 state parks, Little River State Park and Waterbury Center State Park, as well as several boat ramps and accesses. And it's just a very popular recreational place. On the historic end, the dam were put together following the 1927 flood, which is the flood record for this area. I think 50 something people were killed in the Winooski Basin alone, maybe around 80 statewide. This dam and several others were sited and designed following that event. This and its 2 sister dams, Wrightsville and East Barre, were constructed and completed around 1958.
So when you said it's the third tallest,
Yes.
because I'm familiar with the dams, the Army Corps of Engineer dams on the West River, are those?
The tallest one is Harriman Reservoir.
Okay,
The second one, I think, is one of those Army Corps dams. I'm spacing which one it is at the moment, but
okay,
yeah, this is the third tallest.
okay.
Moving on to the spillway project itself. This project is a project being done in collaboration with the Army Corps of Engineers, who are the original designer of the dam. It focuses mostly on the spillway system itself. In the early 2000s, we started to have trouble with the spillway system. The radial arm floodgate, which are those yellow shaded gates, started to have jamming issues where they would get stuck in partially open or partially closed positioning and couldn't be moved. This led to some maintenance being done and work being done to the gates, and that followed with a structural analysis of the gates, where it was found that they can only safely handle about 70% of their original design load. So meaning that we have to operate these gates and have so for the last 20 or so years under a load restriction. Meaning if we had a major flood, these gates would be able to hold back the full amount they were designed to. We'd actually open the gates and start to discharge water downstream earlier than this facility was designed to be discharging water downstream. The project components of the work with the Corps is full replacement of gates 1 and 2, which are the 2 smaller ones that are shaded in yellow, and restoration of the third gate, which is the larger one. That one's 35 feet wide, and that was added in the 1950s, so it's has more modern steel and better reinforcing than the other 2 gates. The second portion is downstream tow apron stabilization at the downstream end of the spillway, kind of where the blue shading is. There's actually quite a bit of rock erosion from discharges over past years of the bedrock. It's fairly poor quality bedrock at the site, so there's going to be some stabilization in that area. The green shaded area is the bridge that extends over the spillway, gives access for maintenance and for operating the gates. That bridge is in very poor condition. It's actually been stabilized in 2024. I believe we completed a stabilization project of that bridge. And we're going to be removing it in its entirety and replacing it with a vehicle with compliant bridge that can handle the modern loads. It's very challenging to actually do work on our hoist systems because the bridge is a narrow pedestrian bridge, and the equipment inside the cabinet is very heavy, and it's just very difficult to do maintenance on that. So I'll eliminate that issue. And then lastly, concrete repairs. All of the concrete, unfortunately, as part of the spillway, has what's called alkali silica reaction. It's an issue where during original construction, when they put their concrete mix together, they used an aggregate and a cement paste that caused a chemical reaction. It's something that in modern construction they know about and they test for. It's essentially been like eliminated from modern construction. But in the 1930s, they were unaware of it or not aware to the level they need to be. Unfortunately, all this concrete is impacted by that because it's caused premature deterioration and cracking. And so it's going to be basically concrete resurfacing of almost the entirety of the spillway.
So resurface. Wow.
So schedule wise, the initial step was a risk assessment where we looked at the entire dam in a holistic manner to make sure that the spillway was the spot we should wish to put our money after, and that's what the risk assessment confirmed. After that, we moved to the modification study where these different these basically deficiencies and remedies were first determined, and that is under final review. We started on design, which has been going on since late last year till through 2028, and then construction is planned for 2028 to 2030, pending funding. This is, if you remember from last, this is a 1 year delay from what we initially had. We have kind of locked a year in the process, and a lot of that has to do with the complexity of the project, as well as some of the, I think frankly, some of the staffing challenges they're having at the core, given the unsettling at the federal level. Their staff was reduced significantly smaller than what it was, and so their ability to take this project on and keep it moving is just slow.
Is that the local core?
It's a New England district.
So just there's a little bit of sidebar, but the other dams, do they have the people that they have normally had?
I believe so.
They were pretty tight. The ones on the west
Right.
river, they use the same crew for both dams.
I don't, I'm entirely familiar with their staffing levels, but I can speak to the design division within the New England district. Is much smaller than it was when we started working with them a few years ago on this project. So that's something they've been working through.
And there were funding complications with this.
Yeah, there were, and Emily's a slide on that. Emily will cover
Okay.
just a slide or two.
Do you have any questions?
These next couple of slides are just show progress that's been made on the project. So the black contours on this plan are proposed conditions. One of the challenges of this project is just getting at construction access. The spillway is located at the far eastern end of the dam, away from the main road that gets up there, which comes to the western side. The access across the rest of the dam is very narrow. There's no easy way to access the actual dam, the spillway itself. During original construction, they actually built a road up from below, and they did a bunch of things that can't really do anymore. So the current plan is to install this temporary, hopefully permanent road that goes from along the upstream slope of the dams, loops around to in front of the spillway, allows us to get cranes and equipment down there. It's estimated over 20,000 cubic yards, which is about 2,000 dump truckloads of material needs to come in to build this road. But this is, kind of the first hurdle is getting access. One of the first things that will be done in addition to this will be drawing the reservoir down roughly 30 to 50 feet for an estimated 2-year period. This is a little unfortunate recreationally, but it's really necessary because we need to be able to provide commensurate flood protection that we have with an operable spillway system, as we would when the spillway system is torn apart and we're doing this project. And to do that, we need to store it by bringing the reservoir level down. In addition, we don't want to have the reservoir level anywhere near our gates because we're going to have the whole area torn apart. We don't want to, we're actually in a very fragile state during construction. So we want to make sure we don't have water flowing through during that condition as well. So
It's actually pretty impressive that 100-year dam doesn't need complete replacement.
yes and no. I mean, a lot of the components of this dam are pretty darn well built and sort of, but many of the components, especially the mechanical components like gates and things, do have a shelf life and 50 to 100 years, and we're sort of in that zone. So it's sort of to be expected.
So during that period, this will not provide flood protection then, if the gates are out.
The gates are out, but the reservoir will be drawn down 30 to 50 feet. So rather than
You'll
getting,
have that storage.
yeah, we'll have that storage. So the intent is design that, I say 30 to 50 feet because that will be designed based on some analysis that are getting done to basically provide commensurate flood protection to an operable spillway. So functionally, people that live downstream should get the same performance as what they would be used to having during the work as when the project's complete.
And just to connect back to the Pennell Penstock project, the importance of that piece of the infrastructure being in good shape is so that the water can pass under the dam and not have to approach the spillway
Yeah,
while under
exactly.
construction.
Yeah, a 2-year period, that'll be the sole way water is conveyed through the system. So that's why we wanted to evaluate it carefully before starting this project. These just show some schematics of what the planned improvements are. The blue shading color is the planned improvements to the pier systems that support the bridge that goes over the top of the spillway. You can see the bridge now is 14 feet wide for the most part, and then 22 feet wide at locations of lifting equipment. The bridge is being raised up to match the dam crest, which is a positive move and increases hydraulic capacity and obviously access. But you see that's a fair amount of construction. The image on the right here shows an example of kind of the toe protection is going to look like to hopefully arrest that rock erosion, protect the toe of the spillway. This next slide might be a little bit difficult to tell about gate. The one image on the left is the proposed design replacement of gate 1 and 2. These will probably be designed or fabricated in a shop in 2 pieces, delivered to the site, assembled into one piece and lifted into position. They operate on trunnion, which are basically big hinges. The gates rotate up and down the hinges. Those trunnions will be replaced. So these will be trunnions will be replaced. The concrete around that will be replaced, and then the new gate will be hung on the trunnions, assembled, and be made operable. That's what's happening for 1 and 2. For gate 3, that's the one that's purple and pink. That one had higher quality steel and better reinforcing. That gate is going to be structurally reinforced. Notes there that we're going to add about 7,000 pounds of steel to that gate to reinforce it and bring up the code.
So when you're all done, you'll actually restore the dam to its original design capabilities.
Exactly.
And lasted another 100 years, right?
Well, at least hopefully.
Yeah.
The next major piece of work that's being taken on by the Corps and us is in the spring of the year. We'll be doing a design level subsurface exploration program with the spillway. This includes drilling cores and borings into concrete, bedrock, and soil at the dam, and also look at concrete bedrock interface. It'll be largely focused on areas of the spillway, particularly the piers, to understand how much concrete demolition needs to happen there to accommodate the wider bridge and the new trunnions for the gate replacements. Again, this is planned for the spring. It's always weather permitting with this work because we're working in the spillway, and spring is dry. The spring on the drier side, we'll have no problems. If we have a wet spring, it will challenge the work, but that's all we
We've
do.
done it this last summer.
We should have done that and not tried to do the other project. We should have reversed them, but you get to a point on things that's just not possible anymore. Pop across our mind though. Let's take a step back and talk a little bit about that tunnel and penstock project. Here's some kind of fun photos of the work. Again, the objective was to perform inspection, destructive and non-destructive testing of the tunnel and penstock materials. By and large, we could evaluate condition and remaining service life. The scope is listed here. It wasn't just cleaning and inspection. It was confined space entries associated with it, which made us need to improve access into the penstock. So we had to install new manholes in order to remove the wastewater out. We had to install drains. We had to do some steel platform work to make it possible to even access and make it safe. We had to put in crane systems just to move equipment around inside there because it's such a tight area. While we're still waiting the final report from the consultant, and they're still kind of pulling together some of the results and working on that. Sort of, I think kind of what we're thinking is the general consensus is the dams are in the pipes, they're in fair condition. They're certainly capable of safely handling the flow during the spillway project. However, if we want to avoid probably somewhat costly replacement cost in the not too distant future, we should probably be looking at a lining coating style project for at least the penstocks. Something we probably need to start planning for once we're done the spillway project, and that would be to much more thoroughly clean the interior and exterior of the penstocks down to bare metal and put on epoxy coating systems to prevent further deterioration before it's too bad. And then this last slide that I have is just to let you all know about a challenge we had this year. It was related back to the spillway project. During routine maintenance that we do every year, routine annual inspection, it was found that gate 3, which 35-foot gate, the brake system that controls that gate was having trouble reliably stopping the gate safely. This led to a red tag issue where we had to place that gate out of service. We put it all the way down in the closed position. We activated the damage emergency action plan on the non-emergency advisory level. So basically we contacted the downstream communities and said, listen, we have one of our 3 floodgates. While if absolutely necessary, operable during a major flood, it could be. However, we have a gate challenge or brake challenges with it, so we're placing it out of service. Just for informative purposes, we designed a new replacement, of course, with a special order thing because of the age of all the equipment here. Installation was completed in 2026. While the overall project cost was not particularly high at $20,000, that includes design, equipment purchase, and logistics and installation of getting it in place. It took a bit to get it going. Once it was in, it's tested, everything tested, and we're up to fully operable service there now. The EAP has been deactivated, but it just serves as a good reminder that this equipment that we have on the spillway is a lot of it's 80+ years old. It's near the end of service life. The reliability of it is not as high as would be preferable in all cases. If we were not looking at a $76 million replacement project in the next few years, we'd probably be looking at replacing a lot of this equipment sooner than later. So we're sort of at that point in that need to be doing this stuff. So, and that, I just had one more slide. I apologize. This last slide is results of an analysis that one of my staff members was able to do. This is a great example of something that when we have extra staff, these are things we can take on to great value for the program and the state. is that one of my staff members, did analysis of all the maintenance and capital costs that have been spent at Waterbury Dam from 1982 to 2025. That was basically we have actually even older data, but that was really the most reliable, timeframe that we had. We did subtract out major capital projects from this assessment, such as in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, we did $26 million seepage control project with the Corps of Engineers. And we didn't account for the spillway project with the Corps of Engineers we're working on now. We're looking at more major maintenance and minor maintenance projects that we've done over the years and what we really need to be doing, as we strive to meet not only modern dam safety rules, but basically the best stewards of this critical piece of infrastructure that we can be. Hopefully leave the dam in a better state than we found it when we took these jobs. Operation and maintenance costs from 1982 to 2025. All these costs were put into current day dollars. We found that we spent since 1982 roughly an average of $200,000 a year on these projects at Waterbury Dam. At our low, we spent $0 in 1 year. At our high, we spent 1.6 million. And I think kind of our conclusions are that we need to play catch up really over the next, say, 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, but we need to play catch up on a lot of maintenance work that needs to be done. And sort of an estimated annual need is roughly $500,000 to get us to kind of where we need to go over the next 10 years. And that's annualized. So in theory, there'd be years where that would be less than that, and years there'd be more, because it kind of depends on the actual project cost. So we took the total cost and divided by 10 to get that. But this is a very helpful assessment. We're extending this onto our other flood control dams and as well as all A&R dams. And I mean, I think we all knew in concept that we sort of have a history of under maintaining this infrastructure, unfortunately. And so we're trying to get our arms wrapped around that and make improvements to in time catch up. So that's something.
Yeah.
Really.
That's good. That's good for planning. So the 500,000 a year, obviously that's more than the 200,000 a year, which was the
The average of
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you'll put that in your budget and
Yep.
it'll be up and down probably.
Yep. There'll be additional dams too. This is just one of,
Yeah.
100 dams the agency owns. So
Yeah. but
obviously it's the
that's- no, but
largest.
That's really important to know.
Yeah, so by far it's the largest dam, most complicated dam. Nothing's gonna be more than this, but there are many other ones. Okay. So, yeah, this next slide is.
Yeah, so we're going to talk through the funding portfolio for the work that's planned at Waterbury Dam for the spillway reconstruction project. So as Ben mentioned, we have the dam safety modification study that resulted in an updated cost estimate for this project, which through the additional planning work that had been done, they were able to drop the cost estimate down from 92 million to 76 million. And part of that is, as I understand it, as they move forward in the process, there is the cost estimate becomes more accurate and they don't need to build in as much contingency. So that's good news that the cost estimate is coming down. And as it moves through the design process, that cost estimate will likely be further refined. And in terms of the breakdown of cost share that has been secured for the work at Waterbury Dam over the years, initially when the feasibility study kicked off back in, I think, 2016, we were in a cost share agreement with Army Corps where they paid 65%, we paid 35%. And we were able to secure some funding through a special Lake Champlain Basin program section of the Army Corps budget to support that feasibility study. And then from there, we moved on to the dam safety modification study. That was a 50-50 cost share with non-federal match and federal funds. And then the cost share agreement for the design and construction phases, which we're just entering into now, was originally supposed to be 35-65. So the state paying 65% of the cost, or sorry, 35. I might have mixed that up. And so, but fortunately, leadership with the congressional delegation was able to enter into a much more advantageous cost share agreement with the Army Corps. When the dam was originally built back in the 30s, the state paid about 7.1% of the cost of the dam. And so we were able to reach an agreement to carry that cost share rate through for the design and construction of, so thanks to our congressional delegation and especially Senator Sanders' office for helping us to get that cost share into place. And that was done through the Water Resource Development Act, or WRDA at the time. And so now at this point in the federal budget, We have authorization and appropriation. So for this project, currently there's $40 million that has been appropriated to the Army Corps to support the design and construction with an authorization ceiling. So that appropriation could go up to $60 million. We are working right now with our congressional delegation to increase the authorization ceiling for this project to $80 million. So hopefully that would give us high enough authorization to bring the project through to implementation based on the updated cost estimate of $76 million. And then following that, we'll need to work on filling in the appropriation for the funding. So getting that authorization cap lifted is the first step, and then building in more appropriation for the project. So that's under negotiation now, and it's expected that the WRDA, the Water Resource Development Act, will be passed later in the calendar year, which is pretty typical. Ben mentioned that there has been a little bit of a delay in the design getting off the ground. So having the slight delay in the project timeline actually gives us more time to work with our congressional delegation to secure additional resources for this project, which is good news. As long as we can continue to hold the match dollars stable for this project. And maybe it would be a good time to move to the next slide. So this top table here shows the cost share estimates under the dam safety modification study. So you can see with the 7% cost share, the split between what would be covered with the Army Corps dollars and the state share of that. Right now, because of that 60 million authorization ceiling, the state would have to put a larger portion of the bill, but if that can be raised to $80 million, then the gap in funding could potentially be reduced. So right now we have $40 million that's in the bank with Army Corps, the authorization ceiling of 60 million, working to lift that to 80 million, and then working to continue to secure the additional appropriation. And on the appropriation, there's a couple of different ways that can be done. It could be from a direct appropriation from Congress, or we can also work with the Army Corps to build that into their annual funding portfolio. So the Corps itself has funding that could be directed to this project. And so we're working closely with the congressional delegation to explore options for making the funding more whole for that. And so let's see, if we are able to increase the ceiling to $80 million and secure additional appropriation, we estimate that it would be an additional $1 million in state match that would be needed to make the project whole. We already have 4.5 million that was secured as part of the from the cash fund in 2024. And so it would be a $1 million delta that we would work with the General Assembly to hopefully secure. If that ceiling cannot be raised to $80 million, then we're looking at a $13 million delta that the state would need to work to fill. And then worst case scenario, if everything stays as it's currently authorized and appropriated, the delta in completing the funding for the project would be $32 million. So it's good news that we are making progress working with the congressional delegation to obtain additional resources for this project. Status quo right now, there's 32 million additional we would need to secure. If we can get that additional, if we can get the project up to the additional $60 million under the current cap, then it would be a $13 million delta. And if we can raise the cap to 80 million and backfill the appropriation, then it's a $1 million gap in terms of raising state match for this project. As Ben noted earlier, if this dam were to fail, the cost would be significantly greater than that. I think you had $300 to $400 million ballpark for the cost of dam failure. So this is certainly an important investment to make to prevent loss of life, harm to property, and additional costs. And we look forward to continuing to work with you all, as well as our congressional delegation and the Army Corps, to try to fill some of the funding gap here as best we can.
So if it's worst case, what in what time frame would you need the extra funding?
So if we're hoping that the project moves to construction in 2029, 2030.
Or as soon as late 2028, you know.
So,
Calendar year.
yeah, we hope that by next year, when we are building our capital budget request, we'll have a better sense of the outcomes of WRDA at the federal level, and also a better sense of any updates to the cost estimate through the ongoing design work. So it'll be really important, most likely when we're building the FY28 capital budget request, for us to check in on where things are at and see if there's additional, the magnitude of additional resources that will be needed for this project.
Okay, it's helpful. Well, good luck.
Thank
Good luck to all of us. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
Got a couple of questions. What's the relationship between the cost of maintenance of the dam and the hydro facility? So you've got a user that benefits from the dam. And so what's their role in the maintenance costs?
So Green Mountain Power is the power producer. Back for an original project siting, as my understanding is that this piece of property prior to the dam being there was actually owned by Green Mountain Power. Green Mountain Power is looking at siting their own power dam at this site. Turned out their contribution to the project was they donated that land to the state, who in turn donated that land to the Corps to build a project at roughly that 7.1% cost share that we're referencing today. And is that being their project contribution, they essentially secured water rights for power production into perpetuity. So they don't have a, I guess they negotiated a very favorable agreement back in the 30s and somewhat absolved from responsibility of financing dam repairs.
Okay. Then my next question, when you draw the reservoir down, you're obviously gonna significantly reduce the head on that turbine.
Correct.
So it's going to reduce its power output.
Very much.
So is there any, do they have any recourse against the state? Because now we aren't providing them with the,
I think the short answer to that is no, and they are project, I
We're
mean,
there.
despite that agreement I referenced earlier, they are good project partners. They're aware of this. They've seen this coming a long time. They work every project that we do. There's some collaborative effort that goes through it, as we can both coexist in the same space, and that works very positively. So,
Where all of a sudden we have to somehow
Yeah.
subsidize loss of power
I
generation.
think they have that, they're well aware of it, and they have that worked into their planning budgets and are aware, just like any project. And this spillway tunnel and Penstock project's a great example. They've been offline for over 2 months because of that project. But
Yeah.
you know, we planned with them. They planned it. They were doing their own maintenance upgrades while we've been doing our project. So it, you know, it worked.
That because it's one of the cheapest ways of generating power. And then my next question is we fix the gates, so we're now able to put more pressure on the gates, which means we can raise the reservoir level slightly, which means we can increase the head on the turbine. Are they going to be able to actually generate more power, or is there something else in their design that would limit them from increasing their power output with the additional head?
Yeah, that's a great question. Once the project, there's two things going on. The state owns the dam. The state operates the flood control works at the dam. Step back up the slides here, explain.
Just thinking whether we can maximize some power output out of.
So sure. So you can see in this figure right here, it's an upstream side photograph of the gates. You see elevation 592. That's the base of the gates. This is at reservoir level near normal, which is 589.5. So the water level is 2.5 feet below those normally. And then the flood control band is from 592 to 617.5. GMP essentially owns from 589.5 down for power production. And we own from that up to 617.5 for flood protection. So they're operating under a federal license to operate to make hydropower. FERC license. These water levels are what they are. Post project, this water level will remain the same. So it won't be necessarily an increase in power production in that regard. Where there potentially maybe a small increase in power production, I'm not really prepared or that familiar with what this exactly means. But when the project's complete, one of the things is that the winter drawdown will be going away. So I don't know how if that impacts them negatively. They won't be able to draw down anymore, but they'll have a higher head for, so I don't quite know, but that'll be one thing that will be changing for
I'm
them.
just curious.
They're certainly well aware of it.
The,
I think there are some concerns with limiting the winter drawdown even with the new construction. So those are things that still need to be, hurdles that still need to be better understood, but yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the entire answer to the power financial part.
Cool. Good questions. Anybody else? Questions or comments? I think this is great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us in.
Thank
Very
you.
helpful. Okay,
All right.
so anything else? I think then we are